How I would start running if I was a beginner. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Alyssa Olenek. I'm a coach, a hybrid athlete, and a runner myself, and I'm here today to walk you through exactly what I would do if I was to start running from ground zero all over again. When it comes to running, a lot of people have this narrative and idea that they're not made to run, or it's too hard or too difficult, or their bodies just aren't made for it. And what I find is most often, most people, when they get started running, they just start doing too much, too often, too soon, and feeling really frustrated and negative about that in themselves. So today's tips here today are to help you ease into running in a way that's sustainable, allows you to make progress and gain fitness while also not feeling terrible along the way. The first thing that I would do is start with less than you think you need. The biggest mistake I think most people do when they start running or doing fitness or even returning to running after a long period off is just doing way too much too soon. Your body has a hard time adapting to this, not just physiologically, but your joints. So you get these nags and these niggles and these little injuries and or pain that comes up, and then you feel like, well, I'm not made to run. So what I would do if I were you is take what you think that you can do or you should be doing to start and pull that back and do less. When it comes to totally being a beginner as a runner, I'd actually start with just doing intervals of 30 seconds to 1 minute at a time. So don't feel the pressure to jump into running a mile or 30 minutes or anything crazy off the bat. Just start with running for 30 seconds to 1 minute at a time and doing a few intervals of that. You can set a timer for 10 minutes and work up to 15 or 20 minutes over time, gradually increasing the duration of what you're running and or decreasing the rest in between those intervals. I love the idea of 30 seconds on and then walking till you feel good again, and then running again for 30 seconds and seeing how many total intervals you get in that first 10 to 15 minute bout of training. Then from there, as you gain fitness and confidence and comfort with that, increasing that duration of what you're doing. But again, start with less than you think you need. You do not need to push your body to be running for 5 or 10 minutes at a time if that's just too much outside of your comfort zone right now. So if you haven't been running recently, but maybe you run in a few Metcons at your local gym or your Orange Theory class or something like that, and you know you can run for 5 to 10 minutes at a time, but you can't sustain that for a long period of time. Maybe you're starting with 5-minute intervals with a 2-minute walk and then repeating for 5 minutes again and building that up over time. It's about meeting yourself where you're at within your fitness, but again, don't just start jumping into the most that you can do. Start with a little bit less and give your body time to adapt to that new stimulus and stress before you start doing more. Number 2, I already alluded to there a little bit, is meet yourself where you're at. A lot of people have this narrative of what they did in the gym class growing up or sports growing up or what they feel like they should be able to do because they're comparing themselves to people on social media or their own fitness status. Maybe you're a tremendous lifter or you're super fit in other areas, so you feel like you should be able to do these things. When it comes to running, you have to meet yourself where you're at and give yourself grace so you can actually gain the fitness where you're at to get to where you want to be. There's no shame in having to pull back to meet yourself at your current fitness level, and that will allow you to create the space to actually adapt and make progress over time. Again, meeting yourself where you're at and doing less like we talked about before will give your body the space to actually adapt and not overreach or overstress it and during that process of gaining the fitness in order to become the runner you're trying to be. The third thing that I would do is I would start with increasing your frequency, so number of days per week you are running, then your volume, the duration or how long you are running within that, and then your intensity. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make once they start running and or try to get into running or already have been running for a little bit is they want to jump into fancy speed work, really hard, really high intensity workouts. And what I would start with first is start with running maybe 2-3 days a week, building that up to 4 or 5 days per week, or in those 2 to 3 days per week, start building up your volume. How long are you running or the distance that you're running in? Then spread that out to more days as it gets too difficult or you need more frequency to reach the goals you're trying to achieve. And then once you have an established baseline, a good amount of volume that you're doing each week, it's maintainable, recoverable, you feel good doing that, then we can add on the intensity, the speed workouts, the quality sessions, and or the higher paced running efforts so we can get faster or speedier or start pushing that ceiling of fitness. One of the other biggest mistakes I see people make is that when they start doing too much too fast too soon, they also start overstressing themselves with a ton of intensity and volume all at once. It's a lot easier to adapt to one of those things at a time when it comes to your running training. And that doesn't mean that you have to avoid doing speed work or hard paces forever. It means allow yourself to establish the baseline and confidence and skill of running before you start trying to change all of these variables. It's going to be a lot easier to run slower and easier and increase the number of days and volume within that before you start just hammering harder pacers efforts and runs. The last bit of advice I have for you is to run slower than you think you need to when you first start running. One of the things people do is they start going guns a-blazing, pushing their pace, running as hard as fast as they can, and they cannot sustain that pace or effort. The adaptation process to running is really slow, and you can think of it as being similar to almost gaining or building muscle. That's a really, really slow process, and we know we need to spend a lot of time in the gym and eating calories and recovering and pushing the weights in order to start gaining that muscle we're looking for. But running, on the other hand, we don't see the adaptations that are happening within our muscles or our bodies in response to that training. And the unfortunate reality is that the adaptations to cardiovascular training and running and or endurance is painfully slow. We're talking months to years of adaptation. So give yourself grace at first, because you don't get quite the same newbie gains you may with lifting. That the fitness and progress will come, but do less than you think, take it slower, and gradually increase it over time so you give your body not only the chance to adapt physiologically, but also physically. Often what happens is that your cardiovascular system sometimes appears to adapt quicker than maybe your body does, and people start just doing way too much than their bodies are ready for, and that's when your joints and connective tissues and ligaments and tendons start to get a little bit chirpy, or you start to get the nags and niggles as we alluded to before. So give yourself patience and grace in the process of running, and dedicate yourself to actually committing to the fact that it is slow, but it takes a lot of slow to grow, and it will get you there faster than if you keep pushing and having to pull back because you get injured or hurt or do too much too fast or too soon along the way. I'm sure you've heard a lot of people talking about zone 2 training and zone 2 running, and for most of you as beginners, zone 2 is gonna be seemingly impossible for you to keep up with your training. What I want you to focus on right now is thinking about running at an RPE, or rating of perceived exertion effort, of a 4 to a 6 on your runs. If you're brand new, running right now might feel hard all of the time, and that's okay. But think about not sprinting or going all out on all of your runs, just pulling it back so it's a little bit slower and easier so you can sustain the paces and efforts that you're running at. Zones and fancy heart rate training or specialized training or any of that stuff can come with time as you make progress, but don't worry about that right now. Worry about practicing the skill of running and getting better at it, but not, again, going out the door super hot, sprinting, going super hard, and then feeling like your lungs are burning, your legs are burning. You can't possibly keep that up. If you slow your pace, you often can sustain that for a longer period of time. And last but not least, it's okay to walk if needed during your intervals or part of that slow training. Walk run is a great way to start adapting to running training, and you can count that walking as part of your fitness and your buildup of being able to run more over time. There's no shame with your slowing down, including some walking as part of your training. If you are new to running, I just also want to say welcome. You are going to have such an amazing journey here. Running has been one of those most magical things that I've ever been able to experience and share with others in my life. And running was the first form of fitness that inspired me to do the work that I'm doing here. So to give you the gift of running is such a privilege to me. And I really, really hope that you believe in yourself, you give your body the grace that it needs and the patience that it needs to become the runner that you hope to be. And as always, if you run, you are a runner. There is no definition you need to meet. So lace up your shoes, get out there and get after it. If you found this video helpful, do me a favor and send it to another newbie runner that you think needs this advice, or that friend you're trying to get to come running with you. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys on the next one.